EX Pokemon are coming back to ranked, and there's a very specific reason that is happening. Draft is changing and more. Let's get into all of this right now because it's a lot. And I guess this really begs the question, are we ready for draft? Because I don't know if we're ready for draft. News coming from the official Japanese website for Unite. We would like to inform you about the regulations for ranked matches in Series 20, Season 20, which will begin Thursday, June 6th. In the currently ongoing Series 19, the requirement to start draft has been lowered from Master Rank 1400 to 1200 in order to allow more trainers to experience it. In the survey, while there were some welcoming comments such as enjoying strategic battles, there were also many opinions about opening up draft mode to a wide audience. Based on these results, we have set the regulations for the next series. We will continue to work hard to create better ranked match environment. All right, we'll see what that means. We will also be conducting a survey in the next series, so we ask for your cooperation. Season 19, you had to be Master Rank or higher with 14 Unite licenses. Season 20, you're going to need to be 1400 or higher, so this is the same as the previous season, Season 18. And you will be able to draft one EX Pokemon per team. These are the big changes. And I mean, there's a lot to get into here. Let's kind of break this down piece by piece. First, I have to say, with some of the surveys coming in, I'm not surprised that some people were not absolutely in love with draft in Pokemon Unite. Inside Pokemon Unite, we got it in there. And I think part of the reason, well, there are a lot of reasons for it, but as I talked about in my We're Not Ready for Draft video, a lot of the issues with draft weren't that players just weren't ready for draft, which, by the way, there are a lot of players that aren't ready for draft. Most of the issues are inside the game itself. They're inside Pokemon Unite. Let's talk about some of the problems with draft and why I think there were a decent amount of people that probably didn't care to see it in their ranked games, or at least in every single ranked game. As I previously talked about, there are a ton of bugs in the game. The game is not the most stable thing, and your game will crash. Sometimes you will go through an entire draft, even a normal draft where everyone picks what they want. It looks like we have two, solid teams on both sides. Someone will crash, their game will put them out, they can't get back into it fast enough, and then you will have to reset the entire thing. So for a short match, you're going through the entire draft process multiple times as someone AFKs because of the game. This doesn't have anything to do with anything, but the game is just not optimized properly, and it will crash and people will drop out of it. So now we've got draft and people are dropping out of games. That's like just one annoying thing, but it's very reasonable to say that the stability of the game is really not there entirely, and adding another component on top of it that crashes games is a bit of a mistake. Now, I talked about the time aspect, and this is something that I've heard a lot of you in the community talk about. I think there's kind of a, how do I want to word this? There's like sort of a disdain towards players who don't want draft in all of their ranked matches, but I don't think that's really being fair to a lot of these players, because you genuinely have to understand what is going on for them. Now, if you're worried about this one trick Zeraora who has a 44% win rate and never plays with the team, I'm not as concerned with this player, but I've heard many of you in the chat talk about the fact that we are queuing up for a draft for a really short game. Like a really short game. I was just kind of timing out some of my videos, and it looks like it takes about 3 minutes, 45 seconds from, finding a match to getting into it when you have draft mode. That feels like kind of a long time, given that the match is only 10 minutes long. Now, in comparison, I looked at a couple League of Legends videos, and I'm sorry if this is not entirely accurate. I don't have the exact formulas. I haven't looked at enough data but I'm just giving you a basic idea. I looked at some league matches, and their draft is longer. There's more going on in their draft, but their draft was about 5 minutes long, so it was like a minute and 15, minute 30 longer than our draft, but their matches are much longer. I mean, they have way longer games, at least double the time. I don't think you'll find many league matches end before the 20-minute mark. I would be really shocked. So given that we have that, it is odd to have such a long draft period for such a short game. I think it's a very fair complaint, and I understand why people are like, hey, I don't even care about this. Like, don't put me in this huge windup for this match. Also, it creates some really unfortunate situations where you are literally just watching the two teams for 3.5 minutes, and you know exactly what's going to happen in this match as the enemy picks a good comp and your team decides to last pick 2 attackers after you already have them. That's another thing to get into. And I will talk about that here in a moment, but another big issue is the game doesn't give you a good tutorial at all, and it's not even that good of an interface for draft. The first player loads in, they're not even sure that they've loaded in yet, like maybe they're looking away for a second, then they realize it's on them, then they have to scramble to draft something, and you see this happen a lot where that player doesn't get to the Pokemon that they want to ban, right? You also have the 2 lowest ranked players on the team picking all of the bans, so sometimes they're just banning out some nonsense stuff, or oftentimes I kind of think they're banning the Pokemon they want to play, and that's not entirely their fault. They are getting thrown into this system without a tutorial that's showing them how to do it, and without a stable system that literally pops up and goes, you have the first ban, please ban a Pokemon on the enemy team. I understand that maybe you would think that some players don't want this, but there would be nothing wrong with having a good interface that tells people what is going on and a tutorial that lets them know how to do it. And now finally, one of the biggest issues with draft that I understand why players don't want to have it in all of their games is a good amount of players don't care. They simply don't care. They don't want to pick around a team. They resent the fact that maybe in one of the lower spots they think that they have to play support or something like that, and they don't want to. They want to play Decidueye, they want to play Mamo in the jungle, they don't care what you want, they just don't care. I personally have noticed that once you get higher in ranked, once you're like past 1400 or so, like we had that one season, it seemed like the draft matches were more the matches you got that were draft, because every player was of a higher rank. It seemed like those were higher quality draft games to me. Now, there are a lot of issues going on that we're going to need to talk about as to why draft absolutely should be staying in the game at the current rating, and why it probably should be expanded, even though that's not what we're getting. I just wanted to point out there are a lot of very legitimate reasons someone would not enjoy draft in this game. The matches compared to the length of draft are too short. The way we're pairing players, the matchmaking of the game, enough of the players at a low enough rank do not care, and they will do whatever they want. There's no good tutorial, and it's a buggy mess. Now, there are a lot of great reasons to have draft. One of the biggest is some players really do care. Some players want good team comps, and players don't want to deal with these mirror matches all the time, and I am very much on that side. I don't like some aspects of draft because of some of the things you're put with, and again, some of the functionality of it, but it absolutely is better for the health of the game, and you get better ranked matches when people are on board and drafting. And I think it's important, especially when a game like this has some very, let's say, questionable balance at times. For instance, right now, you could see that Tyranitar has almost like a 100% ban rate. It's got like a 90% ban rate. You know what that means? It means at least this. The community does not want to see this in their games. Whether you think it's the most broken thing ever, whether you think it's on the level of like Absol, Meta, Zacian, whatever your take on it is clearly one of the most powerful things in the game, and players don't want to fight it. And now that option is going to be taken away from them a little bit, kind of in multiple ways. With a game that doesn't balance itself that well, and with EX Pokemon coming back, the thought of draft getting shrunk down is even more worrisome. The release of Phalanx and Tyranitar's current power level is a great example of why draft is very, very important for this game. With Phalanx specifically, there are really strong counters to this Pokemon, but Phalanx is really, really good. However, now if you run into a blind pick, you don't know what the opposing team is picking, you have no way of knowing if they have Phalanx or not, so things like Petal Dance, Giga Drain, Venusaur really doesn't have the same kind of oomph that it used to, because you don't know you're going to be running into Phalanx, so you don't get the fun counter picks that you used to have with something like that. Turning Phalanx's release from maybe one of the coolest ever to, I don't know, something that's just pretty dang overpowered unless you happen to run into someone who is maybe expecting to see it. Now, of course, the meta will start to evolve. You'll see how often people pick it, but that's an issue all on its own. And then now we have Tyranitar. We have not had a crazy powerful Pokemon that everyone in the community is crazy worried about with draft like this for very long. Like, we didn't have the crazy like week and a half or 2 weeks of like Metagross when it like was way over buffed. We didn't have Zacian, we didn't have Mewtwo Y, we didn't have Mewtwo X, we didn't have Miraidon really in ranked, I think, at all when you could draft. I think I'm getting that kind of wrong, but you get what I'm saying. We didn't have a Pokemon that everyone kind of universally agreed we didn't want to see without draft in a while. And now it's going to be back. Now you could have Tyranitar mirrors in every single game on top of EX Pokemon, which, I mean, let's talk about EX Pokemon for a little bit, shall we? I'm going to say something that is going to sound controversial, but I think you'll agree with me. And tell me in the comments if you do after I explain my reasoning. We want EX Pokemon in ranked. We absolutely do. We want them in ranked. We want them in the UCS. We want them in every major tournament. You want someone to hear about Pokemon Unite and hear that Ho-Oh is coming, Miraidon is in the game, Mewtwo Y is here, one of their favorite Pokemon, and they can get into a game and play it. You absolutely want that. At the same time, they have done a miserable job of putting these Pokemon into a state where they can be in this game in any reasonable way. There have been metas where Pokemon are absolutely more powerful than maybe the current power level of EX, but release Zacian, release Mewtwo X, release Mewtwo Y, even release Miraidon, which was maybe less powerful than the others, but you get what I'm saying. All of these Pokemon have been profoundly overpowered, especially upon release, and now they are being let back into the ranked mode. The big issue is, of course, not with the EX Pokemon being allowed in ranked. It is with the design choice of EX Pokemon. They are, it's such a horrible choice to intentionally make something more powerful than the rest of the roster because lore-wise, and this really is what we're talking about here, lore-wise, inside of Pokemon not inside of Pokemon Unite, just in Pokemon in general, lore-wise, these things are powerful. Mewtwo is more powerful, so it's got to be that much better than Azumarill, even though for a game like this, that doesn't work. We've talked about this a million times. You want EX Pokemon in ranked. You just want them to be balanced with the rest of the roster. And now that they're back, honestly, it's been a while. I don't know how balanced these Pokemon are compared to the rest of the roster. I think they're probably all pretty dang powerful, but they're going to be running into other things that are pretty dang powerful, and it's going to be chaotic. And for this game to do this right, it would need to balance Phalanx, Tyranitar, Mewtwo, Miraidon, Zacian with the rest of the roster. And given their track record, I just don't see that happening. So is it good that we have EX Pokemon coming back to ranked? In theory, yeah. Just like draft is good in theory, but the execution of it is not super good. Just like having Mewtwo in the game, in theory, is good. The execution of it is pretty dang horrible. So the question is, what is this going to do in Season 20? And now, of course, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, we know why they're bringing EX back to the game. And we probably also know why they're moving draft. I actually think the decision to move draft makes sense if they could balance their game. I think the decision to move draft makes sense. A lot of people have talked about how the matchmaking in this game is bad and it's easy to get into master rank, etc., etc. You can have a, not a great win rate, and you could still get there just by grinding a lot of games. And this is 100% true. And creating another barrier to when the game gets more serious and competitive makes sense given how their ranked system works. Doesn't make sense in the grand scheme. I'm not trying to defend that. I'm just saying, given how their ranked system works, I understand creating a higher barrier to entry for draft, being like, this is the more serious mode of this game. I think that's somewhat reasonable, even though the better option would be earlier, better draft, expanded to multiple ranks. But sorry, as I was saying, the reason that they are doing this is because there are enough players that don't take the game seriously enough and they just want to play whatever cheesy thing that they like to play. It might not even be Tyranitar or Miraidon, right? It could just be that they want to play Decidueye and they hate when it gets picked away from them or something like that, or whatever. Now the other issue we have are EX Pokemon. Without question, the reason EX Pokemon are being opened back up into the ranked mode is because these are extremely popular Pokemon. They have battle passes for them and whole campaigns about them. People join the game to play them, so they want people to play them. And we have an EX Pokemon coming to the game very soon. At anniversary, we will at least have one. Last anniversary, we had Mewtwo Y and Mewtwo X, flip-flopped in that order on release. And this year, we will have at least Ho-Oh. We might have Ho-Oh Lugia. I don't know what they're planning on doing exactly, but we will at least have one EX Pokemon coming to the game. We already have Miraidon, who was released, and now you literally never see a brand new release. It's not the most recent release, but one release ago. You can't ever see it because it's EX, so it never gets to play. Same thing, like Mewtwo Y is pretty dang recent. You never get to see it because it's EX. Zacian, really popular. It was hugely popular. You never get to see it. And then Ho-Oh, they can't have a new release come to the game where you never get to play it. Because imagine the marketing behind Ho-Oh coming to Pokemon, you know, flying in from off screen. And then someone boots up the game. Why do I say boot up the game so much? Someone opens the game. And when they open it, they're like, wait, why can't I play a Ho-Oh? Oh, the team already has an EX. Or, you're in playing the ranked mode? Yeah, in ranked there's no EX Pokemon. Oh, you're playing the ranked mode? Oh, it's draft. They ban Ho-Oh every game. From a marketing perspective, from a bringing new and returning players in, the idea that you have some of the coolest Pokemon in some people's eyes ever, and you cannot play them, makes absolutely no sense. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And it is a problem that they have created themselves. They have created this problem because they made the Pokemon too good. And now they put the term EX near them to mean that they're extra, extra good. And everyone goes, oh, yeah, those Pokemon are the worst. Can you please ban them so I can have a more fun? It's like, it's in a beautiful, perfect utopia. You would want EX Pokemon in ranked. You'd want people to be able to play EX Pokemon, and you'd want to be able to look across the other side and see that the enemy team has Miraidon, Mewtwo, Zacian, whatever they want to run, and then you look at your side and you're like, yeah, that's fine, but honestly, you know, Azumarill is just as good as Mewtwo, and my Espeon is actually, like, I think I can counter Miraidon with this. You know what I'm saying? You want EX Pokemon in the game because they're freaking cool and they bring players to the game and it's exciting. And I also love Gold Silver, so like Ho-Oh sounds awesome. But at the same time, they can't balance them, or they choose not to. Why did I say can't? They choose not to balance them well. And now you've got this two-tiered system where you have EX Pokemon. They're only allowed one. You are saying in every single way possible that these things are better than the rest of the roster. So much so that only one is allowed. But given that one is allowed, I would argue that that means one is expected, right? If your team has the chance to pick Ho-Oh, a Pokemon that is going to be a dummy good defender that can revive allies, and instead someone on your team picks Razor Leaf Decidueye, I mean, you're in for it. You're absolutely in for it. Given that they're letting you pick one EX Pokemon, it feels like they are saying you will have one EX Pokemon. In a perfect world, the game would be less buggy. There would be a tutorial for draft. You would be able to more accurately separate players that are more interested in playing a higher level competitive version of the game. And EX Pokemon would be balanced. I am cautiously, I guess I'm mostly pessimistic about how this season is going to play out. But man, it's gonna be something seeing these Pokemon get back in the game. And we're really gonna see, like, sure, Mewtwo Y is crazy, but is it as crazy as Phalanx? Is it as crazy as Tyranitar? We're just gonna have to find out when they actually kind of clash very, very soon. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I know there are tons of you that are not happy with the version of draft that's in the game, and I think that's totally fair. And I know there are also a lot of you that would say, like, look, I do like playing Zacian or whatever. Like, I get like people who are playing just Zashi and Comfey on release nonstop, like you are a bad person, like, you know, karma's coming for you at some point. But I understand someone who goes, no, I like Miraidon. I want to play Miraidon. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to say. The game should just balance it better. Anyway, I wanted to get into all this because there's just so much here. And the big news is draft is getting moved back up to 1400. Mixed bag for me. I would say mostly negative, just because it's going to be harder to balance the game through player choices. And then EX Pokemon coming back. Again, mixed bag for me. I want EX in the game. I just want it to be balanced. All right. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all soon. Also, NAIC this weekend. I'll NAIC you there. That is the first of 8,000 times you're going to hear that NAIC joke.